Hi, it's Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing Live, number 88. Today we're going to talk about why your vocal classification doesn't matter. So, how are you doing today? It's a hot day in the summer here in the Utah area of the United States, and we're going to be getting up into the 90s. And the end of the week we'll be in triple digits. We're going to hit 100. Okay, it says my streaming is really bad. I don't know why. I think it's because somebody ran the microwave in the house or something. Anyway, so let me know if you can hear me and see me, and I hope that the stream gets better. We're not receiving video data fast enough, it says. Okay, well, let me know. Let me know how it's going. All good. Great to see you once more. Bruno, you're the first every time. Well, thank you for letting me know. So you can see me and hear me okay? Is that right? I'm a little concerned because my software is saying it's not up to speed. But anyway, no problems. Okay, I'm going to trust you, Berno Inferno, because um, everything is working as well as I know, and so I'm guessing in Simeon. Thank you, and nice to have you with us today, Simeon. Thanks for letting me know that you can see and hear okay. All right, so the whole vocal classification thing is mostly irrelevant for a vast majority of singers. And so we might be tossing it out today. Who knows? We won't be, but we're going to be talking more about that. What's your vocal classification? Not your vocal type, but what's your vocal classification? Do you know? Do you care? Do you? Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you know your classification? Not the vocal type. I mean, we'll maybe talk about that, but okay. Mito, nice to have you with us here. Yes, all good? Great. Thank you. Lady Flower. Hi, well, hi, Lady Flower. No issues? Okay, great. Um, and Dan Lala, all good there? Great. So, well, Mito, thank you very much. You're the best too. Um, all right, so we'll be starting this officially in about a minute, but the topic today, vocal classification, is can be so fuzzy and so confusing and so concerning to so many singers. I get this question all the time. People send me their range and they ask me what their classification is, and uh, it's so I want to talk about that today. Okay, 2 o'clock my time, someplace in the world. I don't know what your time is there. Some of you I know are up around midnight, and thank you. Thank you for joining me at this late hour. Others of you are watching the broadcast closer to me, and so it's not quite as late. And some of you are watching the recorded version of this. So thank you. Thank you for joining me. I'm Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing. This is Power to Sing Live, number 88. It's the 88th live broadcast that I've done. And I want to welcome you today. We're going to be talking about the topic, why your vocal classification doesn't matter. Why your vocal classification doesn't matter. Do you know yours? Okay, so Carlos says, oh, thank you. Meadow says, you're the best. I love your advice. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Carlos says, Ligerian Tenor. Okay. So, Carlos, can you explain what a Ligerio or Ligerio tenor is? I'd really be interested if you are dialed into that and what that exactly means. Um, I've got some of that information here, but I'm just curious whether or not you have spent a lot of time on that definition and what it means to you. Um, Simeon says, I'm a baritone or tenor. I'd like to know if I'd like to know if I'm a baritone or a tenor. And he says, which is frustrating sometimes. And I kind of would like to know, Simeon, why is this frustrating for you to know whether you're a tenor or a baritone? Just curious about that. Um, Carlos says, I don't really mind that much. Okay, great. Oh, Simeon says it's 12 a.m. Wow. Okay. Early, late. A late night, early morning hour. Samantha says, oh, it's 10 p.m. where they are located, and you are welcome for this effort. I hope that it helps today. So, um, what is a vocal classification versus a vocal type? Now, in my world, I define vocal types differently than classifications. One of the problems with with the terminology is it varies depending on the audience. And I get that, and I'm fine if other people want to call vocal types, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. That's not how I define the vocal type. The vocal type, I'll talk more about at the very end of this broadcast today. Vocal type being what you tend to do when you sing higher. But the vocal classification is uh, is what I really want to describe today as not really being of much matter to us unless you sing a certain genre, and I'll talk about that in a second. So Meadow says, I am sorry, do you mean soprano and the mezzo thing? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So the classification definition today, as we're discussing it, is the classification of your voice, whether you're soprano, whether you're alto, tenor, bass, or there's a whole bunch of others too. Like was said earlier, um, who was it that said they're Ligerio, sorry, Carlos said he's Ligerio tenor. That's one of the subcategories of tenors. And there are subcategories of sopranos, subcategories of altos, subcategories of tenors, basses. And so you can break them down into a lot of different categories, which I'll mention some of those in a minute. Um, I'm just checking this is my camera right there, but I have my notes right, or comments coming in. So forgive me for looking away, but I want to see, you know, who's saying what. Um, okay, so Dwight, Dwight PN, Donna Roy says, dude, what is my voice range? Like G sharp type segregation. How do I learn to segregate different voices? Yeah, that's kind of what this is about today. Um, and we can talk a bit about range, but why do you care? Why does that matter? Data Roy, I'm not being flippant. I'm not being facetious. Why do you care what your range is? Or in other words, you give me your range. Why do you care what classification that is? I'm just curious. I'd like to know. Meadow says, by the way, my voice starts from deep and I can go as high as an E7. Whoa, that's way up there. Berno, highish baritone here. Can pull chest to a G, but fed up with straining. That brings up a good point, Berno. So when people ask me what their classification is, and they give me their range, if they're pulling their chest voice up to those notes, and then they break into falsetto, it kind of turns the whole conversation into a waste of time because you could be a low, in my case, I could be a low bass, pull my chest voice up to the A, above middle C, break into falsetto, and then ask somebody, well, I can pull my chest voice to an A, and I can break into falsetto, and I can go all the way up to the high, the A5. Well, that just creates a lot of confusion and makes the whole discussion kind of irrelevant because that's not what classifications are all about, vocal classification. Um, if you have to if you have to yell to get the note and you have to disconnect to reach, a falsetto note or something, And so can you see the complexity of this discussion? Um, okay, so by the way, let me see. Berno says, okay, let me get back to comment on from Simeon. Uh, Laverius. It's because I'm in a glee club in our school and I don't know if I'm a baritone or a tenor. When people ask me what my vocal classification, I don't know what to answer, which is sad sometimes. Simeon, don't be sad about it. First of all, doesn't your director listen to your voice and say, I'd like for you to sing tenor, please? Or I'd like for you to sing bass? Simeon, tell me, did your glee club director put you in one of the vocal, one of those voices? Or do they just ask you, what do you sing? And then you choose? In my choirs all my life, growing up in our schools here in the States, we would audition and the director would listen to my voice and he'd say, I'd like for you to sing bass. Or I'd like for you to sing the high bass, which would be a baritone. Or I'd like for you to sing low bass, and then sometimes that would vary depending on whatever song. If I was one of the basses, sometimes he might say, Chuck, I want you to take the low, or he might say, I want you to take the high. I mean, um, but I'm curious, do they just put you into the glee club depending on what you say? Oh, I'm a tenor, but you may not be. I just would like to know because that seems strange to me. Carlos is a tenor who possesses a baritone type of weight in his low register and is often mistaken for one. But as he ascends, he gains a sweet, feminine, almost mezzo soprano-like. Also has a lot of agility. So that's the Ligerio tenor. Took me a while to phrase that. Haha. Well, that's pretty descriptive. Good, thank you. Carlos says, or no, let me see. I don't really find it that important, the classification anymore, since I think people can train their voices to sing in different Fox and play with different timbres, with their different timbres. Okay. Uh, Dad Roy says, I can't sing high notes, but deep voice is still manageable. Meadow says, I really, I really I really listened to a video talking about that, and the coach said it's not important at all. Describe your start, but that's it. But can't improve the quality of voice. Okay, all right. So that's an interesting point that the classification doesn't necessarily have to do with quality of the voice, and that's somewhat related to something else I'm going to bring up at the end, which is the vocal type again, which I categorize, all of you may or may not know, as um, full chest, high larynx, light chest, no chest, flip falsetto, mix, vocal types, just four. So, hey, Subia, nice to have you here today. Glad you're joining us, and sorry I'm late, and I bet you are late. What is it there, about 1:30 a.m. or something like that? Thanks for joining us, Subia. Did you set your alarm to get up for this? I'd like to know. Thank you for being here. Carlos says, timbre similar to that of mezzo soprano, 200 characters. Okay. Um, Simeon says, first bass. I sing bass one. Okay. Verno Ferno. Yeah, okay. So we've got some friends here today. Simeon says, no, he puts us where we could be more effective. Okay. All right. But you just want to be able to tell when someone says, what's your vocal, what are you, what kind of voice do you have? You want to be able to say, I'm a baritone, or I'm a bass, or I'm a tenor. Um, yeah, that's okay. I mean, I don't think it's really awful to say it's still developing. I'm gaining upper register. So I really don't know for sure. Right now I'm singing baritone. Right now I'm singing tenor. Um, okay, so Meadow says, I'm sorry, please tell me, where does the register of the whistle note starts from? I don't know the answer to that. I would say probably roughly, uh, I would say probably around between the C and the E. Uh, but some of those that I've heard before, I would say you're probably talking about like around the C7 which is, there's only about an octave left in the piano. But I don't know there's even a specific category for whistle voice. I think people can whistle in several different pitches as well. Okay. Simeon says, no, I did an audition. Okay. Um, Sylvia believes that vocal classification doesn't matter at some point unless you want to know your comfortable range, which you would probably know that already, right? You would know how high you could sing and how low you could sing. Sylvia said, I discovered my head voice, which is good. Hey, congratulations. Sylvia, you set an alarm. Wow, you are awesome. Okay, so what I don't like about vocal classification, I'll give you a story. When I was in high school, I was a bass. I mean, my teacher told me I was a bass, not my choir teacher. I was taking private lessons, and she said, well, you're a bass. So we sang songs for basses, and I wouldn't do a note above the E above middle C. I could barely do that. There's the E. If it had an F on it, I in the music, that was for tenors, and I didn't sing it. So I think in one way, if you're really obsessing on your classification, you can eliminate yourself from songs that you should sing. Worse than that, though, is I didn't know that I could sing higher. See, the problem with categorizing yourself as a certain vocal, especially by your range, categorizing your type, or rather your classification, is that you really may not be that at all, because the way you have to do it is pull the chest voice too high, or you have to go into falsetto, or you just don't know how high you can really sing. Maybe you've never gotten into your head voice. Maybe your larynx is up a little bit, and so you don't have all your bottom notes yet. And so I think the best thing that can happen is um, when you're singing, just to be aware of how low can you go, how high can you go comfortably without pulling or cracking or breaking. That kind of gives you a ballpark area, but I would say that um, you just don't know what your classification is officially until you've really maximized your voice as it is. So maybe you haven't learned how to bridge. Maybe you haven't learned how to go through the bridge and get up into your head voice. Would that change your vocal classification? Maybe you think you're a baritone, but you're actually a second tenor or a first tenor. You could actually sing tenor if you knew how to bridge into your upper voice, into your head voice. So can you see the problem, the challenge that this presents? Um, I mean, how many of us listen? I don't know. I mean, do a lot of you guys listen to songs and then want to know, well, is that a soprano song? And if it is, and you're an alto, you don't sing it? I just don't sing those. No, I'm an alto. I don't sing that because that's for sopranos. I kind of did that in high school. I mean, I auditioned for a show my junior year in high school, and I got the lead role in Camelot. And then the next year in high school, we did Carousel, which is a Rodgers Hammerstein production, and the leading role had an F. I didn't audition for it. I didn't even audition for the role. I auditioned for the show and auditioned for a different role, a supporting lead, but it's because it had an F in it, I disqualified myself. Now I didn't know how to do it, and I was probably correct in that I just didn't know how to go through my bridge. I didn't know that I could. Again, someone told me that I was a bass, and inevitably I am a bass, but I have some tenor notes, and I could have done that. I could have done that if I'd only known how to bridge, which is another discussion. Okay, anyway, so I know you guys are talking here. Let me just get caught up. Um, Simeon says, I just discovered, okay, we got that. Discovered head voice. Subia said her alarm. You get the award, Subia, for the most dedicated. Subia says, can you tell me the range of a mezzo soprano? The mezzo soprano, it depends on the mezzo. But, they've got some, they can usually get down, many mezzos can get down easily to the A below middle C, and some mezzos can get as high as the high C, which is the C6. Now, it depends. I've had people tell me you're nuts, you're crazy, you couldn't sing that high if you were a mezzo. So it depends on who you're talking to, but all right, let's see here. The range of a mezzo. Dan Lala. Hi Chuck, I sent you a Facebook message asking when you'd be live and thanking you for a couple of videos that I literally changed my life. Well, thanks. I'm behind a couple of days on Facebook. Did I give you that information? I hope I did. I hope I didn't leave you hanging there. I just wanted to say that ever since I was classified as an alto in a gospel choir, I've been stuck in my chest voice, completely neglecting other areas of my voice. I feel it's very dangerous. I think that's a really good point. That once you're kind of labeled as a certain, labeled as a soprano, you think, well, I don't have any low notes, or labeled as a bass, well, I don't have any high notes. It kind of reinforces some things that may not be true. I think that's my point, really. That's what I'm trying to get to here. These become labels that may not actually be true because we're still working and discovering our voices. Now, I'm pretty well understanding my voice at this point, by this point. But as we're beginning into our singing experiences, I think it's really unwise to classify a voice. Maybe we could talk ranges and things like that, but even then, they're evolving, they're developing. What if you're working on your bridging? And so your range right now is only E above middle C if you're a guy, or C above middle C if you're a girl, and you can't sing any higher without breaking. Does that mean that's it? That's what you are? It does not. It just means you're working on your voice. You may be able to add an octave to your range. Then what vocal type are you? Or vocal classification are you? Anyway, Bruno asks a quick question. How long did it take you between first realizing you could bridge and to be confident in practicing enough to use it on stage, singing and performing? So Bruno, I first met Seth Riggs I believe it was in November of 1996, and it was in a workshop. I don't know if I even met him personally. I may have shook his hand, but I was there in the workshop, and I started studying with one of his teachers in the local area here. I first started singing some songs, but we had a group class, and I sang for a group class. I sang Maria. This is probably in around April of 97. So November, December, January, February, March, April. It's 5 months. The 6th, by the end of May, 1st of June, I sang at another workshop, this time for a bunch of teachers and Mr. Riggs. Seth Riggs was there. That took a lot. That took a lot for me to do that. And I believe I had auditioned one time before that, probably maybe April, May time period, where I sang about 16 measures of Maria, and it ends on the F. The particular arrangement that I had ended on an F. Or rather, I think it ended on an E. I think it went to F and then the E, which F, again, was no man's land for me until I learned this technique. So you're talking 6, 7 months for me to start feeling confident enough that I wouldn't make a fool of myself, that I stood up and sang for an audience. The one that was scary, singing for teachers and Mr. Riggs, is that they're teachers, and then Mr. Riggs. And so, But I was in my, then I got a call back, but I wasn't interested in ensemble. I should have been, because I think I wanted to, like a supporting lead or something, but I learned my lesson. You got to pay your dues. So I started doing ensembles a year later, in October, November time period. So actually performing in a show that I was cast in ensemble, wasn't solo work yet. That was a year. Um, with probably within the next year to year and a half, I was cast as the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, and so I had solo or two in that show. So, probably a couple years before I was back on stage doing solos. Hope that answers the question, Bruno. Doesn't mean that it would take you longer, or that's my progress. Everybody's kind of different. People are in different situations. I don't think you necessarily have to be that that slow as I was. Okay, Dennis says, I just happened to catch you live shortly after I asked you the question. Oh, good. Okay, good. Inking, I think classification does matter because if a baritone was to sing a C5 all day, it could damage your voice, unlike a tenor. Ink, why would you sing a C5 if you were a baritone? Why would you do that? I mean, if you can't sing it, don't sing it. If you can sing it, sing it. Why does it matter what voice you are? If you can sing it, sing it. If you can't, don't. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. It seems, so if I said, well, you're a tenor, or if I said, no, you're a baritone, then you don't even try it. You don't do it. And just because we can sing it doesn't mean we should sing it. I can sing those notes. Doesn't necessarily mean I should do it in a song, because I don't think that's where my voice necessarily sounds the greatest. But that's my discovery. I'm not going to do it because someone tells me what my vocal type is. I'm feeling kind of rebellious today. So, all right, more comments. Horizon, hi. Nice to see you again. Thanks for joining us today. Meadow says, my range is from B2 to B2 in my head voice, and for a whistle, sometimes B5 and sometimes C sharp 7. Cool. Rajesh, yeah, nice to have you here. Okay, so preach. I get it. Okay. Yeah, so let me just read a couple things here. If you go online and do a search, they kind of have this under the topic of vocal types, which again is not my definition, but they start talking about some of this information, which is interesting. It says the let me take my glasses off here. This is this is an article on Wikipedia, and we know Wikipedia is sometimes iffy in terms of all the facts, but generally speaking, I tend to agree with what they're writing here. Um, Vocal range plays such an important role in classifying singing voices into vocal types that sometimes the two terms are confused with another, or classifications. The I'm going to say classification is a particular kind of human singing voice perceived as having certain identifying qualities or characteristics, range being only one of those characteristics. Other factors are weight, vocal weight, vocal tessitura, timbre, transition points, which I think are probably bridges, physical characteristics, speech level, scientific testing, so forth. All of these factors combined are used to categorize a singer's voice into a particular kind of singing voice, or they say type, I say classification. The discipline of voice classification developed within European classical music is not generally applicable to other forms of singing. Voice classification is often used within opera to associate possible roles and potential voices. There are several systems to use, including the German Fock system, Italian opera tradition, French opera tradition. There are other systems of classification as well, most commonly the choral music system. So this is the kind of the point I wanted to make today. These classifications really don't have much application if you're a pop singer or you like jazz or country western, or the place where they have application are found in the operatic world. And there are some really important reasons why. So generally speaking, so they talk about within the operatic systems of classification, there are 6 basic types: soprano, mezzo-soprano, contralto, which is the low female voice, not just alto, but I'd say, at least in my opinion, there are altos and then there's contraltos that get down with the tenor guys. And then tenor, baritone, and bass. Now, within choral music, kind of strictly speaking, you've got soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and you have first and seconds in each of those. And so it's pretty simple, and it's handy to know. Someone talked about their glee club, has different voice types. But again, when I went into that in high school, I didn't know, and my teacher listened to me and said, "I'll have you sing bass." So I'm a bass, and I might be a baritone sometimes, depending on the music, and I might be a low bass other times, depending on the music. All right, so let me just read off, and here's why. So in the operatic world, and I am not opera trained, and anybody who knows opera and listens to me knows I'm not. And so there are many parts of opera that I don't know about. But I do know that they have categories, subcategories of all of these that we've talked about here, the soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. There's subcategories here because certain operas have become known for certain subcategories of voices. So before I give you a couple of these, just as examples, let me read another statement that I found on Wikipedia that I think is accurate. There is no authoritative system of voice classification in non-classical music, as classical terms are used to describe not merely various vocal ranges, but specific vocal timbres unique to each range. These timbres are produced by classical training techniques with which most popular singers are not intimately familiar, and which even those do not universally employ. So, in other words, unless you're doing opera, it's just really irrelevant. Unless you're a soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and you're singing in a choir, and then you're a first and second in each of those categories. Pretty simple. I know there's always exceptions. All right, so here's some of the operatic, and this is on opera.org, americanopera.org, something like that. Soprano, then there's a soubrette, a very light voice. This kind of soprano plays very young women. And then they have some of the roles. An example, Kathleen Battle singing Solfi Dune in Verdi's Falstaff. Okay, so you can see that there are certain operas that are for the soprano. The part in the opera is for a soprano soubrette or a lyric soprano. These kinds of singers portray wide range of characters, from maids to countesses to middle-class women. So you can see that they're almost character roles defined by whether they're a lyric soprano or a soubrette. A spinto. This subset, this is another soprano, a spinto, a dramatic soprano, the largest of soprano voices. Okay, now there's mezzo-sopranos. There's a lyric mezzo, and there's a dramatic mezzo-soprano, and they have different categories and different roles. That one ideal for a mezzo-soprano, lyric mezzo would be from singing a number from Handel's La Resurrezione. Dramatic, same thing. There's a couple. There's a Verdi opera Aida that the dramatic mezzo soprano would be ideal for. So you can see that there's this whole genre here that where there's some importance to knowing whether you're a countertenor or a tenor or legario tenor or a lyric tenor, a spento dramatic tenor, a Helgen tenor, rather Helden tenor, which some people have thought I was. Baritones, Baton Martin baritone, a lyric baritone, a Verdi baritone, a bass baritone, a bass. There's a lyric bass, a basso buffo, a basso profondo. So these are all have classifications because, like for example, the basso profondo. These are singers not necessarily known for the beauty of their voices, but they have great vocal power. They may play types of characters, including the semi-comic character like Mozart's Osman or the dramatic Wagner's Faulkner. Um, Examples are Kurt Moyle singing a number from Mozart's one of Mozart's operas. So can you see that these classifications, people wanting to know what's my vocal classification? Are you singing opera? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your classification. It's probably changing anyway. If you have to ask me what your classification is, you probably are, uh, you know, you're probably still in development mode where your voice is either changing or you're learning to bridge, so you're singing higher than you ever used to. So now what does that do to your, your range is changing and evolving. So anyway, how's that for a bit of a rant, huh? It's not a rant. I mean, these are factual things about the operatic world. Okay, let me back up here and see if I can catch up on a few things. Rajesh, I can't remember if I said hi. Hi, Rajesh. Yeah, you said yeah. Okay, thank you. And Carlos, preach. So Dad Roy says, no, I am able to sing a range of sound. I feel bad about myself. I want to go pro, dude. Regards. Ink says, all right. Oh, right. I also meant as if a baritone tries to sing a tenor song and in the C5s, they wouldn't sound as good as if the key was lowered. So, you do have to be kind of tuned into your voice for sure. And, you need to know what today you can do or can't do. But don't let some idea of your quote unquote classification limit you to what your possibilities are. You may find that as you get your voice in balance, as you learn to get your bridges intact and so forth, that it completely changes. All right? That's the important thing to remember. Is it possible for a baritone to have tenor timbre? Um, Maybe if the baritone, um, well, first of all, he might be a tenor. Who says he's a baritone? His teacher or him or who's saying that's his range or again, you see the problem with this? Who says he's a baritone? Maybe he is a tenor and he has a tenor timbre. So he's a tenor. But if he can sing low, maybe he just got a G or F sharp down low, but he has a tenor timbre and some very good tenor notes. Maybe he's a baritone. Who knows? Who cares? Is he singing opera? I don't know. Oh my goodness sakes. Sorry, you guys. I'm being kind of meanie today, I guess. Um, okay. Meadow says it's all about the bass. No trouble. Dad Roy says, dude, before you end, give me a nay exercise if that will help me in pulling of transition of pitching. If that will help me in pulling of transition of pitching. Dad Roy, not exactly sure what you're needing from me in terms of a nay, nay, nay exercise. I don't understand the pulling of transition of pitching. Can you clarify that? Zigga, hey, Zigga, nice to have you here today. Sorry I couldn't visit last time, live stream. It's great to have you. I hope this is worthwhile to you today. Sylvia Mezzo Fozzi. What is soprano? I'm sorry, I'd like to know. And mezzo soprano. Exemplar of each example of each vocal type will be learnable for me. So you know what? Just search it online, Data Roy. Just do a quick, Google. Just Google soprano and Google mezzo soprano. There'll be suggestions there as to usually those kinds of voices are the higher voices. The highest voices are soprano. A little less high than the sopranos are mezzo sopranos, but they're not really low. And then there's alto, which is a little bit lower than soprano, female voice. And the very low alto voices that are like down where the tenors are called contraltos. They actually bridge in a different place than the other voices do. They bridge with the tenors bridge. And so that's kind of just a real fast, simple way of describing that. So, Chuck, do you think I could be a held tenor because you can hit an E5 in mixed voice. A lot of baritones can't even hit. Chuck, I think you could be an held tenor. It has mainly to do with where I bridge. My bridge I've determined is not where the tenors bridge. And so, and I don't know how low the held tenors go. But you know what? I don't really care too much. I do care in terms of where my bridge is, but it means really nothing to me because I don't sing opera. Myrna says, the more I practice bridging, the better my timbre of my mixed voice and head voice seem to become. Upper tone seems to be. I wonder if I use more and more of a chord structure each time. Yes, Bruno, exactly right. Exactly right. Your timbre is going to continue to evolve and develop as the larynx comes down and as you get more body of the chord structure involved. It's going to give you much more speech level like production of tone because this is going to be more and more like your real spoken voice is. And it's affected my spoken voice. Through the years, my voice actually began to enrich, a deepen, fuller sound. Maybe because I'm aging, but also because the larynx is coming down. Really interesting. Things are starting to change now because I'm 65, and I hope that I can stabilize. It's mainly frustrating for me because I deal with some of that acid reflux stuff. But Dad Roy says, but I felt better sound delivery while singing with my chin aimed towards the ceiling. Don't know what that's about, but you don't want to sing like this because you're going to strain, you're going to put unwanted muscle around your chord structure. The best posture for singing is straight ahead if you possibly can. Meta says, no, you didn't understand my comment. Okay. Data means transitioning. I think it means transitioning. Oh, so going from going through the bridge then. You know, there's not too much to this other than nay, 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 nay. Not doing it very loud. Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. I would do them like that. I do them light and easy on the 5-tone scale. Horizon said, Chuck, I have a real problem with my vocal cords. I'm working on my mixed voice for like 9 months and more. It's getting much better since I started, but something stops me from keep going, or every time or bridging, Carlos. Yeah, transitioning or bridging. Carlos Horizon says, every time I try to sustain my head mixed dominant voice, every time I try to sustain my mix head dominant voice above my chest range on a single note, somewhere like A to B to C5, my voice starts to be cracky, like fry scream. especially if I try it with an open mouth and it gets worse after 3 or 4 more attempts. Horizon, normally what I find that if people start getting scratchy, it's because the larynx is coming up. So if someone's saying, ma, 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 if the larynx comes up, now I can't demonstrate how you're doing because I haven't heard yet. But many of my other students, I have found that I can get rid of the scratch if I just have them do the gee gee gee. Gee 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 gee. So there's nothing on the vocal cord. It's the larynx coming up that does something to cause that scratch sound. The second thing is everybody could use this, and we got to wrap it up pretty quick here. Is airflow. If the airflow stops, it's not consistent, and so if the air is not coming through the chord structure, coming past the vocal cords consistently, then it can interrupt, and the vocal cords can like falter and eventually stop, their vibration, their fluctuations. And so, I have a simple way of thinking about it that kind of helps me keep the airflow moving steadily forward. And I just imagine being behind a semi truck on the highway, and my air from my mouth has to push that truck steadily down the highway. And so I just think about ma 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 ma. So I just think about keeping that constant lean. If this is the truck, constant lean of air pushing it down the highway, and that seems to help. Just a thought. All right, so my goodness, I've just got to draw. I've got to stop here because I'm running out of time. I got a student coming in just a few minutes. Let me see if I can blast her a couple here. Ladraz says, nice to catch you live. My problem is I do all the vocal exercises, even recorded myself doing it. And I have it, well, when coming to actually sing a song, my voice sounds terrible, but on key. Well, Ladraz, I don't know what to say other than try putting the exercises in the song. So do it on a mum mum mum, or do it on a no no no. So instead of doing the song, try it with the exercise. No 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 no. I mean, do it on no 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 or mum mum mum, or even nay nay nay, depending, and see if that helps you transition to the song easier. Ivan says the most relaxed speaking voice may be the criteria to determine the classification, not the singing voice. Okay, that's very interesting. Ivan, hanging around Mr. Riggs a little bit, Seth Riggs, he said that about 4 notes above where you speak is kind of where let me see, is that what he said? Oh, maybe I'm getting this backwards. Now I'm second guessing myself. If your low note is here, that's where you should be speaking. So you go where your lowest note is and go up about 4 or 5 notes, and that's about where you speak. And that kind of gives you a sense too of the tessitura in your voice. Again, I just kind of heard him talk about that. So I think there's a real connection to your speaking voice. Thank you for that comment. Carlos said, Chuck, I got a question. Lately, my mixed voice gains power. When I'm done vocalizing for an hour, my voice feels kind of weak. Note that I don't feel any type of strain as I practice. So Carlos, how does it feel the next day? It's possible you could be pulling. It could be the larynx could be coming up. I would have to listen to it. It may be you've got, maybe some allergies going on or something. If you don't feel like you're straining, maybe you're just not used to singing for an hour straight. That's so give it some time. See what happens. I probably have to listen to know for sure. Dad Roy says, tried using only throat and not other part. I felt now I'm feeling like I should do nay nay while keeping my esophagus elevated. Okay, let me see here. Tried using only throat and not other part. I mean, now I am feeling like I should do nay nay while keeping my esophagus elevated. Sorry, I'm just not getting the meaning of that. I don't think you mean esophagus elevated. Carlos says, not yelling, I'm warming up my voice. My breath support's good, I don't feel strained. You know, Carlos, I think you probably, maybe you ought to break it up into two 30 minutes instead of one full hour for now and see if that makes any difference. Meadow says, God bless you, give you health continued during your life. God bless. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Um, Subia, you know that's what I'm feeling, that my speaking voice is getting deeper and rich. Is it because of puberty or because I'm getting better? Subia, you know, having dealing with the light chest, no chest, it's probably the larynx is settling down and you're getting more into your chords, the vocal cord structure itself. And so I think you're probably getting better. I don't think it's necessary. Puberty does have some impact on it, depending on how old you are. But I found, yeah, the teen girls, you know, once they get into their 20s, it does, you know, it does deepen their voice slightly. But I have a feeling you're probably experiencing the benefit of some of the exercises you're doing. Dad Roy, good night from here. Thanks. See you guys. Chuck, how do you know if you have a naturally bright voice instead of actually singing with the high larynx? That's a good question. Sometimes a naturally bright voice is because it's a high larynx. It might be a high larynx. Your larynx rests higher. Not necessarily too high for that voice, but it's just a higher larynx instead of actually singing with high larynx. All right, so thanks so much. You're welcome. Thanks, you guys. Okay, Meta says, how to engage the diaphragm with singing. All right, last thing. Here you go. So, let the tummy drop a little bit. So tummy out, and then pull the tummy in. That's the diaphragm drops down. So I take a breath like I'm filling up, almost like it feels like there's something down here in my tummy that I'm filling up air with. And but what I recommend you do, Meadow, is go watch episodes 15 and 16 on my YouTube channel. All right, in closing here, we didn't really talk about vocal types, but the vocal type, all right, so the vocal type is is um, is much more critical in my mind for all of us because it describes what you tend to do when you sing through the bridge. Knowing your vocal type, you can select exercises that are designed to help you improve your voice, to learn to bridge, to increase your range, to get the larynx down, to become a better singer. That's why this is so much more relevant, in my opinion, than what the classification is. So this PDF is available to you down below in the um, description of below the video here. So please go to that. You can download this free PDF, Get My Vocal Type, and it contains links. You just click on those links. It takes you right to a vocal type test. It takes you to videos about each of the vocal types. You can learn all about the vocal type. And there's free exercises you can download to help you to that are that are designed specifically for the vocal type. So in the case of my vocal type, pull chest, high larynx, there are exercises there that help me not to pull chest and to be able to get the larynx down. That's going to cause me to improve rapidly. So this little PDF here is really, it's going to save you a bunch of time. Just download it. It takes you right to the places you'll be interested in seeing, and the links are all there. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. The rant today on vocal classification, um, it's so much more vital, I think, for all of us right now to focus in on what our vocal type is, what we tend to do when we sing higher. That describes what we tend to do, and the exercises to help you improve or challenge and improve your voice. So I'm Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing. Thanks for joining me today. You can sing higher with beauty, confidence, and power. I'll see you inside the next video. Thanks.